So if you're working 60 to 70 hours a week, hustling nonstop, and wondering why you're not getting results, this one's for you. The problem isn't your effort, it's direction. It's Coach Collins from Elevates Coaching, and today I'm super excited to pop into the third video of our 7-part Entrepreneur Clarity series. And today's concept is on the idea of motion without direction. It's really just expensive chaos. And so what does that look like? What does that even mean? We find ourselves getting really busy from time to time. And then we recognize later on that, why did we do that? We didn't get much out of it. So what does motion without direction really look like? And I've got 4 symptoms. So the first one is that you're busy, but you're not really productive. You've got that full calendar. You're checking all the boxes, but there's really no meaningful progress. You find that activity does not actually equal effectiveness. And the problem is, where I see a lot of people getting into this hole, is that there's a dopamine trap when you're checking things off of a list. I live by lists. Lists are super critical to me because that's how I get things done. And I do get that dopamine hit. Everyone gets the dopamine hit when they get to check the box. The second symptom of motion without direction is that urgency is crowding out importance. I know I say it all the time, and you guys might get sick of me at some point, but often when we're operating from a place of chaos rather than clarity, we're finding that we're using a reactive leadership style where we focus on what's loud rather than what's important. So what I like to do in my coaching practice and in my personal life to help figure out what's really important is use what's called an Eisenhower matrix. And think of it just as a cross 4 boxes. And in the top, we have what's important, bottom, less important. And on the right-hand side, we have what's urgent, left-hand side, what can wait. So if you start to list out some of the things that you're doing in your day-to-day and what you need to do, look at where it goes in that box, and it's going to help you prioritize way better as a leader in your business, in your family, in your life. And the truth is, reactive leadership, if that's how you're operating, it's exhausting as it is ineffective. So put that stuff down and start doing what's important. The third symptom is that everything feels equally important. So if you have 15 priorities, you have 0 priorities. If everything's important, nothing's important. Nothing gets done. So without direction, you can't filter out what's truly important. You've got your energy scattered across everything, and you progress on nothing. So the 4th symptom of motion without direction is that you notice that your effort, it doesn't compound. And you'll see that when you've been working your ass off for a month and you realize, I'm no further ahead now than I was a month ago, than I was 2 months ago, than I was 3 months ago. What that's like is like digging 10 holes 6 inches deep rather than 1 hole 6 feet deep where you can effectively bury a body, if you know what I'm saying. The problem is that all of your effort that you're putting out into all of these little things that are fragmented, it's dissipating instead of compounding and getting down to where it needs to be. So why does this happen? Why do we find ourselves in this place of motion without direction? Well, firstly, we often have no clear internal reference point. So if we don't know where we need to be and what's important, we can't filter out the decisions, all the bullshit that's getting in our way. So how are we supposed to get to where we're supposed to be if we don't have that internal reference point, that North Star, that guiding place? Next is that we often default to comfortable. And here's our blessing and our curse as high achievers and entrepreneurs. Execution feels productive. If we're busy, that's how we get places, right? The problem is, if we're just trying to be busy and not actually working on the important things, then again, your effort isn't compounding. The next symptom, the next reason that we tend to get into this place of motion without direction is that we've got a fear of saying no. FOMO keeps options open. But when we can start to say no to things, we start to shut off those gates to places that we shouldn't be focused on in the outer world and focus on what's really important. Sometimes you gotta say no. It's one of our biggest challenges, especially if we're people that are out there serving others. And that's what our business is about, service. You gotta work on saying no. And momentum becomes a strategy. So if you're following that momentum that you started with, you might even be following a trajectory that you're not really sure that you want. When I started out in my coaching practice, let me tell you, I started off because I wanted to serve others and I wanted to help people through burnout. The cost, the mental weight for me, it was insane. I was still doing what I wanted to in the sense that I wanted to help people, but I was operating in a subject in a place that wasn't really serving me. And if it wasn't serving me, it certainly wasn't serving my clients. Did the best I could, but it didn't restore me. It didn't keep me going. It wasn't in alignment with where I need to be. So I put together a little something here to help you guys. This is something that I would work through with some of my coaching clients, but how do we get from that crazy motion to actual momentum? What can we do to get there? And I've got 3 phases that I use kind of in my coaching framework to help people get there. And I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to share a couple of questions that might help you out of this chaos and crazy place and moving to momentum. So in the first phase, I've got define your direction. You got to find that North Star. And it's one of the hardest questions for people to answer is, what do you want? You can ask somebody, go ask somebody on the street what they want or what's important to them. They'll be able to tell you what they don't want. Or what do you want in a job? They'll tell you real quickly what they don't want in their job. Very few people know what they actually want. So if you're able to take a moment, sit down and think about what it is that you actually want out of your life, out of your relationship, out of your business, then you get to focus on a North Star. Something in here that'll help you filter out decisions that take away from getting there. The next question I have is, why does it matter? When we start to ask, why does it matter that this is what I want? Then we start to build up this emotional feeling. And feeling drives humans. We're meaning-making machines, and we make meanings on feelings. And if we can feel it inside why it matters to us, it starts to be real. When it starts to be real, we can operate in reality. And another question that I have in this first phase of defining that direction is, who do you want to be in the process? So there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, plenty of ways to get to where we want to be, but who we are really establishes how we get there. So think about, do you want to be the guy that was the asshole or woman that was the asshole to get to that place? Or do you want to be somebody that empowered everyone on the way? You're going to be remembered that way, and you're going to start to operate out of that as well. And the final question in defining your direction is, what feels out of alignment now? If we know this is where we want to go, this is why it matters to us, we know who we want to be to get there, what's taking away from that in present moment? When we start to audit that and take a look at those things, then we can start to move forward more effectively and on brand, or in alignment, as I like to say. The next phase, phase 2, of getting that motion to momentum, is eliminating the noise. all that stuff that doesn't frickin' matter. How do we get rid of it? So the first thing I would suggest is audit your current commitments. What are the things that you're doing right now that it's just noise, it doesn't really matter, could be summed up in an email? Take a look at those things, and what you want to do is you either kill, delegate, or automate it. What can you do? What are you doing currently that just you shouldn't be doing anymore? Drop it. Drop it. Not important at all. Important enough. Who can do it for you? Who can you delegate to? And otherwise, what can be automated? You know, we live in this new world where so many things can be automated. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be a piece of technology that does it. It could just be something that you build into your routine. How do you automate that thing into your day? When are you going to do it? So it just feels natural and not noise. I suggest also, if you're looking to eliminate that noise, you start to look at the 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle. And what that means is that you can focus on 20% of the things that are getting 80% of your results. That's often the way everything works in life, is 20% of what you're doing is getting you 80% of your results. So go take a look at it. What's getting you closer to your ideal place, that haven, that sweet spot? Focus on that 20%. Do more of what you're good at. Operate in your area of genius. And finally, protect your time for what really matters. When I talk about getting rid of unnecessary meetings, stopping with the noise, it's because that shit doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So focus on the things that do matter. And finally, the third phase would be about building sustainable momentum. And what that looks like is bringing out decision-making frameworks. So you can align or decline. What's going to work for you? I talked about the Eisenhower matrix. How can you use these frameworks to make better decisions faster and with more clarity? That's going to keep you on point and getting to where you want to be. I also suggest a weekly alignment check. It's where you sit down and look at the cold hard truth, the things that you might not have wanted to see, that you've been keeping yourself busy with for how long now. Take a moment, look at what happened last week. Look at it honestly, right? Excuse me, but come on. Did you move forwards? Because if you didn't, then you move backwards. If you're not moving forwards, you're moving backwards. There is no stagnate. Stagnating is moving backwards. Don't do it. Also, it's important to take a quarterly recalibration. You know, we've got our year broken out into quarters so that we can really look at what's going on, do that deep dive. Let's have a reset and make sure that we're on track for our big goals for the year. And finally, make the systems that make alignment your new default. Anything that's taking away from and creating that noise and lack of clarity, that's not a system that you should be adopting. If it starts that way because you're doing something new and your brain is firing new synapses in places because you're learning something, sometimes things are hard. It might create a little bit of noise temporarily, but if that system is something that's going to propel you to where you need to be and keep everything else clear, keep it. Use it as your default. So you're already putting in the effort. You're putting in these hours, you're putting in the time. Let's make sure it's the most useful that it could be. And if you find these helpful, and you want to take it a step further, and maybe coaching might be something for you, drop a clarity in the comments. I read these, I'll get back to you. And I'm opening up 8 free clarity sessions at the time of this recording. So if you drop clarity in the comments and I see that, I will shoot you a link to book a free session and we can work through this together so that you can get back on your toes immediately. No pitch, no nothing like that. I just want to get you clear. Thanks again for your time. I hope this resonates and something strikes a chord. If this is for you, let me know. Give me a like. I love those too. and stay tuned for the next video. I'm so excited to continue this series with you. As always, love you lots, and I'll catch you soon.